Hello, good evening, friends. Welcome to the Vampire Book Club. Fixing my microphone. Oh, you can see it. How gauche. We don't show our microphones. There we go. You can see my coffin on the wall. Oh, good. You finished the book. All right. Let me situate myself here. Put the chat where I can see it. Get our housekeeping in order. There we go. Oh, thank you, Sarin Baggins, for the £9.99 before we even started. You are awesome. Thank you so much. The Vampire Book Club. Good evening. I am the Maven of the Eventide. Welcome to our live stream. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm sorry that this live stream is a week later than it usually is. I have bad news. One of my parents died of COVID last week. It's been very hard for me. So I had to push things back a week. I hadn't even read the book yet. So then I took a week, read the book. Now we're here. And I'm not going to think about that tonight. I'm just going to think about vampires. Because, you know, fantasy. I have wine tonight. We're drinking red wine. This is one of my favorite red wines. This is Cocoa Bon. Not my favorite varietal of Cocoa Bon, which is the roasted oak red blend, which is sold out everywhere. You can't find it. This is just the regular red blend, which is pretty good. I buy it at Trader Joe's. Best red wine I've had in years. Oh, thank you for your condolences, but we're not going to think about that tonight. This year sucks, and it's only the 19th. Tomorrow's the 20th. Tomorrow is the 20th, and that's going to be a big day. Anyway, vampires. This month we read The Hunger by Whitley Strieber, a vampire classic of the modern era. Thank you. You love my earrings. These earrings are by one of my favorite Etsy artists who I didn't discover on Etsy, but she also has an Etsy shop. The Etsy shop is called Me and Annabelle Lee, and you should look it up because she's amazing. I found her at one of the Morbid Curiosity Expos that happen all over the country. I went to the one in Charlotte, North Carolina, but they happen everywhere. I know they just had one in San Francisco recently, but Me and Annabelle Lee is the Etsy shop. You know, Annabelle Lee, like Edgar Allan Poe. It's Edgar Allan Poe's birthday. Did you know that? I'm a fan. Just, for the general aesthetic. Also, my daughter's middle name is Lenore. Yeah, I'm that much of a fan. Anyway, The Hunger. Yes, the cover is so 70s. However, it came out in 1981, so it's like a residual from the 70s. This is the inspiration for the movie that came out in 1983, starring Catherine Deneuve and David Bowie and Susan Sarandon. It is a very important vampire movie, much more so than the book. Without the movie, this book probably would have been lost to obscurity. But the movie took, everything from this book. It's a very pretty faithful adaptation, but with a lot of the goth vibe that had arisen in the late 70s, which isn't really in this book. This book doesn't feel very goth at all when you're reading it. But the movie is super goth, and it just launched this goth aesthetic for 80s vampire fans that was super influential and super formative and just inspired so much other vampire media and fiction that came after it. A very important vampire movie. I did a review of it on this channel. You can go watch my review of The Hunger. It was one of the first reviews I did when I sort of restarted my show and started doing more critical, analytical reviews and less joke reviews. And if you watch my video, you will know that I think it's a great movie. I love it. However, I had some criticisms. And my main criticisms have to do with the way the bisexual women are portrayed. They're portrayed very fetishistically. They're very the camera shows them like a voyeur, like it's for the male gaze, like, ooh, lesbians, how kinky, but the relationships as they're developed on screen are very good. As good as in the book, better than in the book. More nuanced for sure. It's just like the sexual stuff that gets kind of creepy in the movie that you can tell, like, oh, yeah, a man directed this. They're very backlit, lots of sexy silhouettes, lots of curtains. But for, queer vampire representation, after Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire came out in 1976, started kind of like the vampire buildup again towards our vampire pop culture. And this book came out. I wouldn't say that it was influenced by that at all, but it certainly rode on its coattails. And the movie definitely was influenced by that. The movie took more from Anne Rice's vampire relaunch than the book did. And reading this book after being so the movie for so long was really interesting to see how different this book was and also how the same. So I guess we'll go through the book like we usually do. Sorry, my voice is so froggy today. I'll drink some water. Yeah, the classic lesbians are bad trope. Well, lesbian vampires will turn your good girls gay and make them into like monsters. Because, that's what lesbians do. They seduce all the good girls away from the good men. Not that the men are good. Like, the men are terrible. And I feel like this book didn't shy away from the fact that the men were terrible. You had these terrible men treating these women in these awful ways. And yet the books was like, yeah, they're just awful guys. That's just what they do. And it didn't try to make you side with the men. It showed them they were raw, they were vulnerable, they were sympathetic at times, but they weren't shown as like heroes or as like, this is how men should be. So I think it was very like just open about, here's some characters. These are their flaws. Let's see how that plays out. They're kind of all terrible, but let's see where it goes. So there's 4 main characters in this. There's Miriam. She's the vampire. She is an ancient vampire from predating ancient Egypt times. The cool thing about the book that you don't get in the movie is that we see a lot of flashbacks to her ancient life and her like previous lives in different eras. We see like an ancient Roman era. We see like a 1400s witch hunting era. We see a Regency era. We see a like 1800s Transylvania vampire scare era. So we see a lot of like periods in her history as a vampire, which was really interesting. Those flashbacks aren't really in the movie at all. You get some like visual sort of like dreamy sort of things, but none of the like actual, this is Miriam's backstory. It's a very tragic backstory. She has a very hard life for a murderous, blood drinking creature of the night. She still is a murderer. She still is a predator. So, Miriam, you have her vampire boyfriend, who is John. He is the David Bowie character in the movie. And when David Bowie plays him, he is very sympathetic. He's just like this tragic figure. And, he's not a good guy because he's still like killing people and stuff. But he's David Bowie. Like, you gotta love him. John in the book is awful. Like, you just hate this guy. He is so horrible. Like, you do kind of feel sorry for him because he's in this horrible situation. So what John doesn't know is that being a vampire is not forever. Miriam is a vampire forever. She was born a vampire. She's a different species. But she can turn humans into vampires, as you do, but they don't last forever. Some last for 1,000 years. Some last for 100 years. It's just kind of give or take. And she's trying to figure out how to make a vampire companion that will last her forever. And she hasn't figured it out yet. So she made John in the Regency era. So like 1802-ish, I'm guessing. Very like frock coats and big skirts and powdered wigs. And John, now in the modern era of 1981 Manhattan, New York, he's reached the end of his vampire life. Suddenly, surprise. So the way the vampires stay young forever is they enter this like deep comatose sleep. And John just stops being able to sleep. Like, his comatose sleep doesn't happen, so therefore he stops rejuvenating his eternal youth and he starts aging rapidly. Sorry. Has my Apple Watch gone off? I thought I silenced it. I have an Apple Watch now because Lindsay Ellis gave me an Apple Watch for Christmas. Wasn't that nice of her? I'm just going to take it off. This was my Christmas present. Thank you, Lindsay. I'm also wearing my Lindsay Ellis is a Menace shirt because, it was there. So John has reached the end of his vampire life suddenly, and Miriam, who was thinking it wouldn't happen so fast, is freaking out. John is freaking out because he suddenly starts aging immediately, starts turning into a very decrepit old man immediately, like within the span of a couple days. Miriam thought it was coming soon, but maybe in like 10 years. So she had been grooming a replacement for him. She found this child who is now a 13-year-old girl who she's grooming. She's going to like give her the vampire blood, turn her into a vampire. This child, Alice, is going to grow up to be like a mature adult and then stop aging, because turning into a vampire doesn't stop you maturing. It just stops you aging. So like once you get to the level of perfect maturity, you stop aging, which is like mid-20s, supposedly. Yeah, so she's grooming this child. So John, who immediately starts feeling these things, he starts freaking out. He doesn't know what's going to happen because Miriam lied to him. She said being a vampire was forever, and he doesn't know what's going on. He gets very resentful towards Alice. He starts feeling bitter towards her, and he, kind of lashes out with her. And he's just like creepy and gross and awful. Meanwhile, they're killing people. They're being vampires. They're burning the bodies. They're living their vampire life. They're very fabulous Manhattan New Yorkers living in this rich, fabulous apartment, not an apartment, a house in New York, on the East River. Very classy, but it's not goth at all. It's like not like in the movie where they go to like goth clubs and wear all black and stuff. No, they're wearing like pink flower dresses and, being all cute and pretty. And, they're still doing the musician thing. In the movie, you see David Bowie playing the cello and she's playing the harpsichord and Alice is playing the violin. That's still in the book. That's still there. I like all the classical music stuff. So Miriam, who knew this was coming and she knows it has something to do with sleep, has found this doctor who's researching sleep. And this doctor thinks the secret to defeating aging is in sleep somehow. And she's done research on monkeys. She's trying to like make monkeys immortal. So the doctor's name is Sarah Roberts. And Sarah Roberts' like co-doctor is also her boyfriend. His name is Tom Haver. And Tom, he's not really her boss, but he's like more in charge than she is. He's like an administrator. So he's trying to like use his girlfriend Sarah to boost his career, but also he loves her and he wants to boost her career. But there's this like big conflict between them of like, are you using me or do you really love me? Is it about our career? What if our careers conflicted? Would you help me then or would you be against me? And he's like, I am a social climber. I am just using her, but no, I do love her. I would sacrifice my career for her. And he is just all over the place emotionally. He has this emotional arc that's like a conch shell. Like his emotional arc is super weird. You hate him, then you feel sorry for him, and then you hate him, and then you feel sorry for him. Tom is just an awful character, but like a very well written awful character. So Miriam wants to get to know Sarah and her research and try to figure out what she's figuring out for monkeys to see if she can save John. But John's just dissolving too fast. John's gone too fast. John, because he's aging so fast, instead of only having to kill a person as a vampire and drink their blood once a week, now he's starting to have to do it like every 6 hours. He has the hunger. The hunger won't stop. The hunger is the need for blood, the need for life. It's all very metaphorical. The hunger is the vampire. Any like desire for like social climbing is the hunger. Desire for like being better than you are is the hunger. So John's killing people willy-nilly. He kills Alice, which makes Miriam very sad. And he burns her body, and then John is just like, he tries to kill Miriam. Because he's not sleeping, Miriam's there in her comatose vampire sleep, so he rapes her while she's asleep. Sorry, content warning, rape. Yeah, it's pretty awful. They're vampires. Vampires are awful creatures. They're monsters. And he's just like, oh, she's so vulnerable. Now I have power over her. And he's just like getting into this like psychosis of, I have been wrong. She lied to me. I'm dying. I'm angry, but also I do still love her. And he's very conflicted, but he sort of gets worse and worse and worse as it goes. And then he wants revenge. So he's trying to plan revenge against Miriam. We find out that every time one of Miriam's lovers falls into this state, they don't die. They just keep aging forever. So she has these lovers from like thousands of years ago that are still aging, and she puts them in a box and sticks them in the attic. And these like mummy people are up there alive, conscious, unable to sleep because sleep is the thing that would make them young again. So alive, conscious, forever, aging, starving, hungry, because this hunger, this need for blood is just, torturing them. And that's like just their eternity. And you know that these things can die, but she will not kill them. She says, my vow to them, to prove to them that I really did love them when I lied to them, is that I will keep them forever and love them forever in these boxes in my attic. So even though she's been alive for thousands of years, she still has these lovers from thousands of years ago in her attic that she's kept. Like, even when she was like running away from the witch hunters, running away from the vampire hunters who were like slaughtering her kind, she managed to keep her like 16 boxes full of ex-lovers and like ferry them across the ocean to America and set up in Manhattan, and she still has them. Yeah, it's super creepy, super horrifying. It's great. I love horrible stuff like that. So John figures out that these people are in the attic, and he's like, oh, this will be my revenge. I'm going to let them loose and have them all attack Miriam. And he sets this up, and then it's just like sits there for like 4 chapters. There's only 12 chapters in the book. They're very long chapters. And you're kind of waiting for this like revenge plot to happen. Meanwhile, Miriam's like, John is gone. He's trying to kill me. Alice is gone. But maybe Sarah has the answer, Sarah Roberts, the doctor, and I can go to her sleep clinic and figure out what research she's done. So whoever I make next will actually live and be fine. And in the movie, Miriam's gone to Sarah to try to help John. Like, this is one thing the movie did better. In the book, Miriam doesn't go to Sarah till after John's already lost. Alice is already lost. In the movie, she's like going to Sarah and being like, please help me save John, in her head, because she's not going to admit that. And it works better. Like, there's some things the movie really fixed about this book, and other things I didn't like. It's a good movie. You should watch it. It's a very good counterpart to this book. So she goes to Sarah, and then she's like, no, I love Sarah. So she has to do the touch on Sarah. And the touch is like this vampire hypnosis thing where you like psychically connect to the person. But the only way to do the touch is to like physically touch the person. So she breaks into Sarah's apartment while she's in bed with her boyfriend, Awful Tom. And she like molests her in her sleep, like, sort of just like sexually accosts her while she's doing this psychic touch thing. And now Sarah's psychically connected to her. It's very rapey. Very predatory. Miriam is a monster. So then she goes to the sleep clinic and she pretends to be a patient. And she goes there and she's like, I have night terrors do experiments on me. So she lets them experiment on her. And they're like, she's a different species. She's immortal. Her blood is uncanny. And they're like, we should just like lock her up and do studies on her. And she escapes. So Sarah goes to find her. And Sarah's like, I don't want them to lock you up and do studies on you because I have a weird attraction to you because I didn't know you did the touch on me. But I'm also a decent human being and I don't want anyone to be locked up and have studies done on them. But I'm weirdly attracted to you right now. And Miriam's like, have some coffee. It's totally not drugged, I swear. So she drugs Sarah. Then she does a transfusion on Sarah to turn her into a vampire. Sarah wakes up and Miriam's like, want to take a bath? So they have a sexy bath. And she's bathing Sarah with like mortuary corpse soap. Super creepy. It's great. Meanwhile, she had tried to lock John in the basement, but John escaped through this creepy tunnel. He emerged through the rose garden. He totally destroys the rose garden. It's great. Very atmospheric. Sarah goes back to work and she's like, I don't know. I went there and I fell asleep and I had a sexy bath and it was weird. She doesn't know she's been turned into a vampire. She's craving hunger and she's like eating and then puking because nothing like satisfies her. So they're doing experiments on Sarah now to figure out what's going on. They figure out her blood. She sees the marks. She figures out she's been transfused. She goes out. She's like, I feel like I have super strength now. So Miriam wants Sarah back, and the only way to get her back, she figures, is to go back to the clinic. So she goes to the clinic, and she's like, if I let you do experiments on me, because let's be real, you all know I'm a vampire now, we'll be cool. Like, you won't try to like imprison me. I'll let you do all the experiments on me you want. We'll be cool. Okay, do some x-rays, go for it. And they're like, okay. And then they imprison her. They lock her up in the psych ward. She can't get out. And she's like, but if I let them imprison me, then Sarah will come rescue me. So she's trying to like lure Sarah in by making herself seem vulnerable. Eventually she escapes. Sarah's turning into a vampire. Sarah goes back with her to her house. Sarah's totally in love. She's like, Miriam is an angel. She's perfect. She's beautiful. I'm in love. This attraction, I can't understand it. She gets there and she's like, but this hunger won't stop. What is this hunger I keep feeling? I keep puking up food and I can't eat anything. Miriam's like, shh, stay here in the dark. I'm going to feed you something and it's going to be great and you're going to love it. So she like brings a victim, makes Sarah drink this victim's blood. Sarah's like, it is great and I love it. And I have no idea what I just drank. But then after she feeds, she has to sleep. So Sarah goes into like the death sleep, right? And then Tom, who's very worried about his girlfriend, because he does care. He's a very complex character, even though he's horrible and sexist and misogynist, he still cares in his way. So he comes to try to rescue Sarah. And Miriam's like, I know John is planning this attack on me with all those like mummies upstairs. I'll just let him do that attack on Tom. So she lets Tom in the house and John lets the mummies loose because he thinks it's Miriam and the mummies all attack John. But John gets away, like he gets scratched up, but he's fine. He gets away. And Miriam's like, well, that went nowhere. Guess I'll put all the mummies back in the boxes. And she puts John in a box and John's out. And it was very anticlimactic. So in the movie, right? In the movie, they changed this. In the movie, that's the climax. All the mummies come out and attack Miriam, and Miriam feeds like her like just desserts. The movie did much better with this than the book. Because the book, we're not even done yet. So in the book, the mummies were like a red herring. So she puts the mummies back in the boxes. She puts John back in the box. Sarah wakes up and Sarah's like, I think I killed a person. This is horrible. I got to get out of here. And Miriam's like, okay, you may leave. This is a test. So Sarah leaves. She goes home to Tom. And Miriam thinks she'll get home to Tom and then kill him. And then she'll like realize she's a vampire and everything will be great. But Sarah resists. So Sarah comes back to Miriam and she's like, I didn't kill Tom, but I hate you. And Tom's like, I got to go rescue her. So they try to go back to the clinic. They're doing more tests. They're like back and forth and back and forth. So Tom comes back to Miriam's house to try to rescue Sarah. Sarah's in the sleep again because until she actually takes a person's full life, she won't be able to like fulfill her hunger because she's only like partially drank people. So Tom comes and he goes into Sarah's room, or he like knocks on the door and Miriam listens, and Miriam's like, I'm an innocent maiden and I think Sarah's sick. You should go up to her room and check on her. So Tom does. He goes up there and he starts having sex with Sarah. And then of course Sarah eats him because she's a vampire now. And then she's very upset. She's like, you made me kill my own boyfriend. I actually loved him so much, even though he was terrible. And this is very upsetting to me. Now I want to kill you. And Sarah is like not gay at all anymore. She really was there for like a minute, but now she's over it. Totally over Miriam. Sarah attacks Miriam. They fight. It's awful. It ends with Sarah killing herself, essentially, except she can't kill herself because she's a vampire now. So she like slits her wrist and Miriam's like, you've let your blood out. So now you can never live, but you also can't die. So I'm just going to put you in a box in the attic with everyone else. And I guess I'll never know your sleep research because now you can't finish your science because now you're going to be in a box forever, just like being hungry for thousands of years. Oh, well, the end. Epilogue is Miriam has moved off to a different country with all her boxes and has a new lover now. Repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat. Yeah. Tom's dead. Except is he really? Because there's this thing about like everyone that they eat lives inside their consciousness and is like they're inside their mind, which is a common theme in vampire stories you see. But there was a lot of sex in this book. Yeah, there was a lot of weird sex in this book where people were just like, I'm suddenly horny. Let's do it. The women Like the sex and the women in this book were written very much like, those Reddit threads are like, here's a straight man writing a woman, and she's talking about how pointy her breasts are, and like just like these weird descriptions of how women are described. Is very much very much a book of its time. But even despite that kind of hilariousness and misogynist, sexist, the characters are still really complex. Like Sarah is a wonderful character. She's infantilized by her boyfriend and by the other people around her and treated as this sort of like stupid little girl. And yet she's also a brilliant scientist. And like the science speak in this is very on point, and like you could tell how smart they all are. So I feel like the author was more trying to make a comment on that rather than just being a dense author who didn't know how to write women. He was more talking about the way men view women and showing that through the male characters, which I think was interesting. Whitley Strieber is a man. And I'm not saying it's perfect. He definitely, I feel like there is some sexism here. Product of its time, 1981, take it as that. But I do feel like there is also some self-awareness to it as well. Yeah, he's a very smart author. I don't know if he's like a perfectly woke author, but very smart. And he did write these really interesting female characters. Miriam is great. I love Miriam's backstories. We don't get any of those backstories in the movie at all the like ancient Roman, ancient witch hunter stuff. Would I say the book is better or worse than the movie is what I guess you're asking. I say they're about on par. Like both have their flaws. Both were very helmed by men, and they're very women-centric stories. You know what I would love is an adaptation of this done by a woman, especially a queer woman, to see how that would turn out. That would be interesting. The movie probably, I would have said, would have been better because it kind of takes the parts on this that fall flat and makes them better, except it's also very sexist in its own way. So the book is definitely deeper, I'd say, but that's just, the way books are compared to movies. Movies have to be a little more surface level, rely on visuals rather than like on development. But the acting in the movie is incredible. David Bowie makes John a much more likable character. And I don't know that that's a good thing because John being awful matters in this. Like he is just an awful guy. He was awful when he was human. He was this, 18th century dandy lord who's just like, oh yes, women exist for my use and my pleasure. And this woman's a whore because she dares to be independent and I'm just going to use her. And yet Miriam loves him so much. I'm like, what do you see in this guy? But then you do get genuine moments of pathos and sympathy from him. And you do feel sorry for like this horror he's going through. No one is shallow and deserves it in this book. It's very well done. Yeah, the word vampire isn't in this book once. It's just implied, the fact that they're immortal and eat people. Miriam is an alien, in my opinion. She's very alien. She's definitely not human. She definitely doesn't view humans as her kindred in any way. She never was human, not like most vampire stories where they were a human and then they became a vampire. She's a different species that kind of co-evolved or convergently evolved alongside humans and hid among humans. And they say that the perfect predator is something that looks just like its prey and is beautiful to its prey. And that's what she evolved as. And she also thinks she's the last of her kind because the vampires look weird. Like they can't really blend in with humans. The only reason she can blend in now is through makeup and contact lenses and wigs. But back in oldie times, that was hard for her. She looked really weird. She has very weird alien eyes. She has like weird pale skin. Her hair is like baby hair. So it's like fluffy, like dandelion fluff. It doesn't look like adult hair. So she had a lot of trouble blending in. So the fact that she lasted so long compared to her brothers and sisters and her father who died in a shipwreck and her mother who died in childbirth is, gives her some credit. She says that to create a vampire from humans in olden times was very difficult. Now, with modern transfusion equipment, she can do it in one blood transfusion, because what she does is she inserts some of her blood into the human. And then that blood is like a parasitic thing that sort of takes over and virally takes over the human's blood. And her blood has like 2 extra chromosomes in it. And then they develop blood and reproduce and fill up the human with her own blood, and they become a vampire. But in olden times, before she had modern transfusion equipment, it was much harder to get her blood into another person. Especially in ancient Roman times. She said she had to do it through many procedures, and most of the time the person would die. So to find a person who was strong enough to actually endure the process and survive and get past the obvious infection that would happen, because of course the wound's going to get infected before germ theory, was difficult. But she did it, and she had her companions. And she was like an ancient Egyptian doctor at one point, even though she's a blonde white woman. Go figure. Did I enjoy reading the book? I did. There were some slow parts. There were some very hard to read parts, but I did get through it. Because of what was going on in my life, I wasn't able to start it until about 3 or 4 days ago. And I thought, well, it's only 12 chapters. I'll read 4 chapters a day. 3 days, I'll be done. But I gave myself up until today to read. I actually finished it yesterday because I got so into it. So, it's not very long. 12 very long chapters. So if you like that. What are my thoughts on the science fiction take on vampires in this book? I think it's great. I love science fiction vampires. And I think this was one of the first science fiction vampires. I know there were more before it, but this was the first one that like really got big and important. And the science was impressive. Like you could tell this author really knew what he was talking about with blood work and, the primates and everything else. Either he was already familiar with it or he did his research and is just like really smart science stuff. Like this makes Jurassic Park looks like kids play, right? Did I have a favorite character? I mean, Sarah is obviously the best character because she's the only one that's like somewhat redeemable. Everyone else is awful. But I like villains. I guess Miriam. I liked her better than Sarah. And of course, I'm not going to like Tom or John. They're terrible. Alice was cool. I liked Alice. She was so obnoxious, like total bratty teenager, but very well written. It's just like a book of awful people being awful. And then poor Sarah just like putting up with it. And therefore that makes her obnoxious in her own, blame the victim, whatever. I mean, this book is a product of its time. This book was important. Be careful when you read it. There are some upsetting things here. It's one of those books that's like, it was very important to the shaping of vampire literature over the past 40 years, but it's shaped it. Like vampire literature is shaped now. So you can just read contemporary vampire literature instead and skip this book if you want to. If you're a scholar, if you're a historian, read it. You need to know it. But it's one of those like foundational texts that the foundation was built and now you can read what was built on the foundation and you'll be fine. So you don't have to read it. It's not necessary. It's not like, oh, you're not a real vampire fan if you don't read it. Do watch the movie. It's a classic movie. Kind of reminded me of the Strain with the science. I mean, Strain is very sciencey. Strain is probably a lot closer to Necroscope than The Hunger, though, if you read the Necroscope series by Brian Lumley. If I'm quiet, it's because I'm reading the chat. I've missed a lot of your questions. I'm scrolling up a bit to see what I missed. So the vampire is like a metaphor for what do vampires mean this time? What is the hunger? We see a lot of it in Tom with his hunger for, career climbing and using other people. He has this foil character whose name is Hutch. And Hutch is not really his boss, but sort of his career rival who he wants to kick out of his job and replace. And Tom just completely doesn't see Hutch as a person. He sees Hutch as an obstacle to conquer and treats him just as this terrible thing that he's like, oh, I'm going to steal his job and I'm going to dance on his grave. And, Hutch is kind of a jerk. He's like this jerk coworker character. But then you see him get humanized later too. He's like, you know what? This is a person too. Tom's unpersoning him the same way the vampire is unpersoning its victims. It's just like a commentary on the career-minded, yuppie era of the early 80s. This sort of, I guess this is early Gen X, that whole era. Oh, thank you, Lindsay P, for the $4.99. Thank you so much. Was there any significance to the Roman dude she was searching for so intently, the guy on the cross? So, one of the first flashbacks we see is ancient Roman times. We're on 71 AD, so shortly after Pompeii blew up. They reference Pompeii briefly. Miriam is looking for her next companion, and she thinks, okay, my last few companions, however old I am, didn't make it. They didn't last very long. I need someone super strong. So Spartacus has just been captured by the Romans, and all of Spartacus's men have been crucified. And they've all been out there on these crosses for days. I'm going to go out to the crosses where all these dead Greeks are. And if any of them are still alive, I would know that that is a very strong individual. And I would know that if someone is that strong to survive crucifixion for this long, then surely they'll be strong enough to survive as a vampire for so long. I need someone with a really strong constitution, because surely that's the secret. Surely that's the answer to someone who can live and be my immortal companion, because all I really want is someone who will last with me forever. So she goes out there and she finds someone, one of the people on the crosses, and she cuts him down. She's like, you lived, you're strong enough. She turns him into a vampire. He survives that. He's strong enough. His name is Eumenes. And she lives with him for about 400 years before he starts deteriorating and he turns into a mummy. And she's like, even he wasn't strong enough. Well, what is the answer? And this is to foreshadow her seeking out Sarah, who's done the research to try to solve the mystery. She thinks, if this guy wasn't even strong enough to last as a vampire, then no human probably is. So I have to scientifically solve this problem. I have to look into the mysteries of sleep research. She is, drugging these monkeys in this way to make them prolong their life through sleep research. So it's just sort of to set up that hunt for her. Eumenes was one of her first choices, and to show how strong of a person she needed to try to find and how much that failed, and that wasn't the answer, sets up for her thinking maybe this is the answer. And then he shows up as a mummy later and attacks Tom. Miriam doesn't age. Miriam grew to maturity and then stopped aging. So they guess that she's about 30 or so, but they don't really know for sure. Did I visualize Miriam as Catherine Deneuve when I read it? Yeah, I kind of did. I mean, she's so gorgeous. It fits. Am I drinking blood? I wish. Well, goodbye, Simon Peter Hughes. Thank you for joining us. The fast aging did remind me of Dorian Gray. It was very reminiscent of that. Any other questions about The Hunger by Whitley Strieber? For Vampire Book Club. I didn't really get the point of John escaping. Nothing came out of it. So John tries to kill Miriam, But he decides he's not going to kill her in her sleep because he wants her to know he's going to kill her. So he like gets a meat cleaver and he waits for her to wake up from her comatose sleep. And then he's like, I'm going to kill you. And she's like, no, you're not. She knocks the meat cleaver out of his hand. And he's like, I'm so weak and frail. I can't do anything. She locks him in the basement. In the basement, there's this tunnel that she used to have, this escape tunnel out of her house before they built FDR Drive, which is this highway in New York that like went into her tunnel. So now her tunnel is blocked off. So she locks him in there. He escapes that tunnel and comes up, like he pulls down the bricks and crawls up into the rose garden, destroys her roses. These are roses that she's been breeding by hand and like grafting, you know, as rose breeders do. They take themselves very seriously for centuries. He destroys her roses. She's very upset. It's very symbolic. And then he wants his revenge. So him escaping that fate was to then try to do the revenge so we could get the scene with the mummies attacking Tom, which was anticlimactic. It was done much better in the movie. But then she doesn't imprison him in the movie anyway, so. What genre do I think it is? I would call it sci-fi horror. Of course, that genre didn't exist in 1981. It would just be considered horror in 1981, I think. Genres were much simpler back then. Not that many subgenres. Let's see if it's written in here. Sometimes they just write the genre in the book flap. Yeah. Do you want to hear about Whitley Strieber? I'll read you his book flap bio. Whitley Strieber. Strieber, maybe? It's I-E, so it's probably Strieber. I probably have been saying it wrong. Was born in San Antonio, Texas, and has lived in New York City. You get that vibe. Like, you definitely, having lived in New York City for 15 years, it definitely read like a New Yorker had written it. He has traveled through many parts of the world, working in fields as diverse as intelligence and filmmaking. His underground films were shown frequently in England in the late 60s. Oh, he was like a beatnik filmmaker. Interesting. His other work includes a documentary on the Process Church of Final Judgment, an unusual religious group that has been connected with Satanism. In New York, he has worked as an advertising executive and writer. In recent years, in addition to writing fiction, he has been developing a new theory about the origin and true purpose of the tarot. His first novel was The Wolfen, soon to be released as a film. I have not read The Wolfen. I don't know anything about The Wolfen. I was really put off by the doctors being very okay with keeping someone prisoner like a lab rat. Yeah, so all the doctors in Sarah's lab were like, we're just going to imprison Miriam. We're going to lock her in the psych ward. She's not human, so we can legally do that, and it's okay. And Sarah was like, this makes me uncomfortable, but I guess I'll go along with it because science, and I care that much about science, and I really need it. And then she felt bad later. Maybe because Miriam had done the touch on her, or maybe just because she's like a decent human being. Oh, thank you, Luciana Banu, for the 10 RON. I don't know what currency that is, but thank you. Yeah, I think like ethics of science were looser in the 80s, or so we're led to believe. Like, you know, those mad scientists, they only care about the science. They don't care about the people. Though someone did quote the Hippocratic Oath in this book, like just to remind you that they were aware of it. And they're like, yeah, don't quote the Hippocratic Oath at me. I've not read any of other Whitley Strieber's books. I do have a couple of them. One vampire bookshelves over here. I have 4 in this room, which you can't see. They're the sequels to The Hunger. Lilith's Dream, A Tale of Vampire Life, and The Last Vampire. And let's see. Yeah, I think Lilith is a different vampire. So Miriam's mother is Lamia, which is an ancient I want to say Greek goddess sort of thing. Let me look this up real quick. I want to give you false information. Yeah, Greek mythology. So the Lamia was a child-devouring sea monster or night-hunting demon, the daughter of Poseidon and the mother of the monster Scylla. We all know Scylla, right? So Miriam's, you hear Miriam, you think like Bible lady name, right? And Lamia, you think. So mother of monsters. Miriam's mother, Lamia, which may be the Greek Lamia, or she may be like just named after the Greek Lamia, mother of monsters. But Lilith in this, from what I understand, is yet a different vampire. Obviously named after the Hebrew Lilith, who was like the first wife of Adam, who is now considered like the mother of demons. Because, you know, religious people be like that. The last vampire, I think, is Miriam's sequel. Miriam Blaylock's insatiable hunger never ceased. Her incomparable beauty has made her a legend among the keepers, capital K. Her many lovers have come and gone, crumbling into ash and nothingness. Oh, they crumbled into ash and nothingness? I thought they were like mummies forever. She knows the secrets of civilization and the mysteries of life. In the hollow soul of her mother, she has witnessed the agony of undeath. For centuries, she gained the wisdom of God and the wit of the devil. For centuries, she has traveled the world undetected. For centuries, she has felt safe. Until now. For Miriam Blaylock, immortality is a thing of the past. He watches. Vampires. Oh, they actually use the word vampires. Interpol agent Paul Ward knows of them. He has battled and cleansed continents of their exquisite poison. He orchestrated the extermination of an ancient lair in Bangkok, obtained their sacred book of names, and knows where they hide and when they feast. He knows their weaknesses, and what's more, he knows his own. It's Miriam Blaylock. Elusive and toxic. She has escaped his complex network of hunters for years. Seductive and cunning, she has become his obsession. And now each has set a trap for the other. Now predator is about to become prey, killer to become lover. Good and evil will become inexorably entwined. The end game begins for the last vampire. No, so she really is the last vampire, I guess. The eternal heroine of Whitley Strieber's classic novel, The Hunger, Miriam returns in The Last Vampire, a new tale of stunning invention and mounting suspense that goes deep into the dark as a nightmare. So this is a direct sequel to The Hunger, and then I think this is like a spin-off about this Lilith character. Oh, good morning in Germany. Yeah, you would think Miriam would mercy kill her ex-lovers, right? Instead of keeping them in boxes forever, because they can die. You just like chop them up into pieces or whatever. But no, it's like part of her moral code. She can live with knowing she's lying to her lovers, that they will devolve into this, is by telling them, I will never let you go. And that's like her mental like hoops she can jump through to get her there. Yeah, very weird, very alien moral compass. And that's, you know, why she's different from humans, why she is the vampire, why she is not a monster. The Hunger. Go watch the movie. Watch my review about the movie if you haven't already. Let me give you a link to that. Which you could just like go look it up on my channel, but I won't make you do that. There. Don't watch it right now. Save that link. Watch it later. Because we are now going to talk about what we are reading next month for Vampire Book Club. It's this book right here. Another classic of vampire pop culture. This is Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Bright. Sorry, it's so shiny. I'm trying to... Here we go. This cover copy right here says, vampires, they ache, they love, they thirst for the forbidden. They are your friends and lovers and your worst fears. So this came out in 1992. It was one of the sort of first wave of vampire urban fantasy when vampires went from being like sci-fi horror or gothic epics or whatever, that like Anne Rice post era, into straight up urban fantasy. Urban fantasy is more of a murder mystery style, pulp action, lots of guns, lots of black leather in the big city, vampires solving crimes or being, perpetrating crimes. Which is what it's become today, where you have like the Jim Butcher and the Anita Blake and like all of those kind of vampires. But this was one of the ones that sort of started off that trend. It came out a year before the first Anita Blake novel. And this is part of a big series too. And this is just the first one in that series, Lost Souls. And I've heard about this book for years. I've never read it. I know nothing about it. All right. Sex, blood, and rock and roll. At a club in Missing Mile, North Carolina, the children of the night gather, dressed in black, looking for acceptance. Among them are Ghost, who sees what others do not, Anne, longing for love, and Jason, whose real name is Nothing, newly awakened to an ancient, deathless truth about his father and himself. Others are coming to Missing Mile tonight. 3 beautiful, hip vagabonds, Molokai, Twig, and the seductive Zilla, whose eyes are as green as limes, are on their own lost journey, slaking their ancient thirst for blood, looking for supple, young flesh. They find it in Nothing, and Anne leading them on a mad, illicit road trip south to New Orleans. Over miles of dark highway, Ghost pursues his powers, guiding him on the journey to reach his destiny, to save Anne from her new companions, to save Nothing from himself. Lost Souls. Vampire road trip book. Exciting. So the person who gave this to me, thank you for giving it to me, says it's not Southern Gothic, it's Southern Goth. There's a distinction. Very like 1992 goth. It is, let's see, 347 pages long. You'll probably be able to find it in any library that exists. I hope you read it with me, and we'll talk about it next month. Missing Mile, North Carolina is a fake name for Athens, Georgia. Is it really? That's interesting. I live in North Carolina now. I moved here not long ago, but I've never been to Athens, Georgia, but I've heard good things. Yeah, this is one of those books that's like, as a vampire fan, if you're not familiar with it, shame on you. You should be aware because it's foundational for vampire fiction of now. So this was back before vampires became for children. So about 15 years ago-ish? Yeah, about 15 years ago. There was a boom of vampire teen fiction. I mean, there's always been vampire teen fiction, but there was a boom. Like you would go to the young adult section of a bookstore and it'd be like the vampire section, or paranormal romance and, anything that was vampire-like, If it wasn't Twilight, it was Twilight except aliens, Twilight except demons, Twilight except witches, Twilight except, it was anything that you could just fit into that genre. But before that happened, which, you can thank Twilight for starting, vampires were for adults. Vampires were for mostly 20 to 30 something women or older women who wanted to relive that era of their life, in sort of like a detective noir murder mystery vein. Cozy mysteries have always been a popular genre, never going to go away. But with vampires, this doesn't sound like a murder mystery. It sounds more like a road trip novel, which is interesting and exciting to me, but still very urban fantasy. And the interesting about Poppy Z. Bright is he's trans author. When he wrote this, it was before he used male pronouns. He used female pronouns back then, but now he uses male. If you go read his Wikipedia article, you'll learn a lot more about him and his transition and the way he views gender and the way he's always viewed gender. And I'm wondering, reading a book written by a trans author before he was out as trans or before he even understood his trans journey, how that's going to read. And I'm really, really interested about that because I am also a person very interested in gender, you know? Yeah, can you believe Twilight is 15 years old? Don't you feel old now? Lost Souls is more of a tragedy, in your opinion. Well, great. I love tragedies. The true Gothic is always a tragedy. Gothic novels should not have happy endings. I too am 37. I too am old and also feel old. I'm scrolling up in the chat to see what I missed. Will I ever talk about the Blood Books series? I only watch the show Blood Ties. Oh, Blood Ties. I'm like, Blood Books series. That could be so many number of things. I haven't read the Blood Ties books. Interesting twist with making vampires completely isolated. I mean, they're on my list. As you can see from my many bookshelves, you see that one there, that one over there, that one there, another one over there. I have a lot of vampire books to read. If you click the link in the description of this video that takes you to my vampire library list, you'll see all the vampire books I have to read. Which is why I started this book club, because I'm like, you should read them with me, right? So I'm not reading them alone. People like to send me vampire books because as a vampire scholar, there are many things where people are like, oh, you need to read this vampire book. And I'm like, yes, I do. So they send it to my P.O. box and now I have it, but I need friends to read it with me. A series of cozy murder mysteries about a vampire who moves to a quaint English village. I would read that series. I love cozy murder mysteries. Any tips on writing a good, unique vampire novel? That is the hardest question ever. You know how many times vampires have been done? Just write it your way, because no one else has done that before. I wrote a vampire novel. I wrote 3 vampire novels. 1 is out, 2 are coming. The link to that is also in the description of this video. I wouldn't say mine is especially unique, but it's mine, you know? Anything that you write is going to be your thing, written your way, and that's what matters. Just do what's important to you because it will speak to someone, and that's what matters. Well, thank you, JMad, for the $5. I hope you and your family are doing okay. You inspire so many. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. My mom still has COVID. She went and got another test, and the doctor told her to isolate for 10 more days. That was about 6 days ago, so she's still isolating. Her husband died last week, and she's just dealing with that now. The rest of my family is okay. It's just that part of the family that's been going through a lot right now. No, my mom will be okay. Her symptoms are very mild. She lost her sense of taste and smell. She never got a fever, which was good. She did have a cough for a while, but she's up, she's active, she hasn't had trouble breathing, so she'll be fine. I have a quick question about your book. Which one of the gang is your favorite character? That's like asking me to choose between my children. I mean, I feel like I should say Death is my favorite character because he's the whole reason I wrote the book. But honestly, Leif is the most fun to write. Like, Leif's the best. No one's going to argue with that. Like, he's just so fun. But if I had to choose between them, I don't know what I would choose. Both my babies. Will I Am Legend be on the book list? Do you mean for book club reading? Probably not, because I've already read it. And the point of the book club is to read books that I haven't read before. If we get to a point where I'm like, I'm out of books, let's reread books I've already read, maybe. But I've also done a video sharing my very comprehensive thoughts on I Am Legend, the book, and the 3 movies based on it. So I don't know what more I would have to say about I Am Legend. If you want, like, if you haven't seen that video by some chance, let me find it. I'll give it to you. It was done back when I was doing more like joke kind of collaborative reviews. So there's like some in jokes there that you might not understand, but the general thoughts about the book and stuff, hopefully carry. There's my thoughts on I Am Legend as of 8.5 years ago. That's how old that video is. 8.5 years. Gosh, I've been talking about vampires on the internet for a long time, haven't I? Have I read Octavia Butler? I've read a few of her books. I did a video on Fledgling, her vampire book, which I will also link you to. Besides Fledgling, I've also read Parable of the Sower, which is great. But I think Fledgling is a very important vampire book. There's my video on Fledgling. The Heirs of the Night. Interesting. Okay, I'll look up The Heirs of the Night. Thank you. Fledgling's weird. Fledgling has a child vampire who has a lot of sex. So there's a lot of pedophilia, question mark? She's 50 years old, but she looks like a child, question mark. Like, Fledgling's one of those books that asks a lot of hard questions that there aren't really answers to, but it's there to make you think. And those questions make a lot of people uncomfortable. But that's what Octavia Butler did. Octavia Butler made people uncomfortable, and like for important ends. Fledgling probably isn't her most important book. These are vampire books, so it's valid to talk about it. But Parable of the Sower is very good if you want to just read about like where's the future of our society going, and we have to think about this. And holy crap, it's a dystopian novel that's very relevant to the problems we have today. There's global warming and just governments being terrible and all that kind of stuff. A book series called Vampire Academy. I also reviewed that. Let me give you that link. So Vampire Academy, my review is more about how the movie compares to the books, but I was a fan of the books. They are fun. They're not the best vampire books ever written, but when the movie came out, I had hopes for the movie. I thought, they'll take these books and they'll make it better. No, the movie was terrible. And that link I just shared is my thoughts on the movie and how terrible it was compared to the books. Have I had a chance to watch Kindred of Kindred the Embraced, you ask? I have a video on that too. I love it when people are like new to my channel. So then I can like share all my things with you. Don't worry, I am not at all offended that you didn't already realize that I talked about this. I have lots of thoughts on Kindred the Embraced. There's my video on Kindred the Embraced. Will Stephen King's Salem's Lot be on the book club list? It absolutely will, because I own it and I have not read it. You know what? I'm going to put that on next month's vote. So the way the book club works is I will usually choose 3 or 4 books in a certain genre. So this month's genre was urban fantasy, mass market paperbacks. And we chose between this and the Patricia Briggs Mooncalled Mercy Thompson book and the Halfway to the Grave books. And this was what the club voted on. The other books will still be viable for future votes. So next time I'll choose something that goes along with Stephen King's Salem's Lot and put that alongside some other books. I've never read any Stephen King novels in my life because when I was young, like 18, 19, I wrote a lot as a writer. I wrote a lot of fan fiction, but it was weird, like very spin-off fan fiction. And people used to compare my writing to Stephen King a lot. And I thought, well, I've never read Stephen King. That's not fair. They can't say that I'm like a Stephen King copycat. I'm never going to read Stephen King in my life because I don't want people to think that I'm influenced by him. If you want to compare me to him, but at least I can say I've never read him, so therefore it's not influenced by. And it just became a thing. Obviously, that's not an issue now. I no longer write that kind of fan fiction. So I should read him. I just haven't yet. Oh, thank you, Lockham, for the $10. Australian dollars. Thank you. Hi, just a fan from Australia. I bought a Kindle specifically to read your book, which I love. So just saying hi. Oh, thank you. My book, The Company of Death, is on Kindle Unlimited. So that means if you're part of Kindle Unlimited, you pay $0 to read it. You can just read it. And even if you don't feel like reading it, if you just get my book on Kindle Unlimited and flip through all the pages to the end, I get credit for that. So the way Kindle Unlimited works is if someone flips through all the pages, the author gets paid as if someone had bought the book. If you buy the book and just let it sit on your Kindle, because it's free, even though you're paying a subscription, nothing happens. But if you actually flip through the book and get to the end, then the author gets paid credit for that, whatever, like 12 cents it is. But it adds up. It's important. Support your authors. Any author that you just want to support, even if you can't spare the time to read their book, get their Kindle Unlimited book and flip through to the end. Have I ever reviewed Count Von Count from Sesame Street? Yes, I have. Oh my gosh, you are in for a treat. You people are just like asking the best questions. I have reviewed the Count Von Count from Sesame Street. I'm going to share that video with you now. There's my video on the Count Von Count from Sesame Street. And it's rather interesting, if I do say so myself. My main premise of that video is the Count a vampire? Yes, he is. Is there a way to do a channel watch along where we rewatch older Maven videos together? I mean, I assume there is. Isn't that what like Twitch streams do? I guess we could do that on YouTube. Maybe not on my channel, but maybe on like a side channel. I could give commentary. If people were interested in that, I'd be down for that. But it would have to be more than like 6 of us. Has anyone made fan art of my book? Yes, they have. There's been some wonderful fan art of my book. If anyone who is here who has made fan art, please share your fan art for the people who want to know. I love fan art of my book. If you want to do fan art of the Company of Death, of any of my characters, I'll very happily view that. What was my first fan fiction or the one I'm most proud of? Well, I used to write a lot of Phantom of the Opera fan fiction because Phantom of the Opera is my first love. And the one I'm most proud of is still up there on fanfiction.net and AO3. My pen name is the Scorpion, which is a Phantom reference. If you're a Phantom fan, you would know that. If you look up the Scorpion, you'll find it. It's called Eleni. It is a gothic ghost story where Christine, who's the main character in Phantom, is haunted by the ghost of a little girl. This is not at all Anne Rice inspired at all. And it sort of starts driving her crazy, and she gets really embroiled with Eric the Phantom with trying to solve the mystery of how this little ghost girl died and what this means and how it affects their relationship. It's very gothic. I'm not going to give you a link to that. If you want to see it badly enough, you will find it on your own. Pen name is the Scorpion. Fics called Eleni. It's not very long. It's only like 53,000 words. Did I watch the reviews of the Phantom of the Opera done by Dominic Noble? I helped him write them. Don't you know I work with Dominic Noble? I helped him write his Anne Rice reviews. Like he actually paid me to help him write those ones. But whenever he's doing something like Phantom of the Opera or Anne Rice or vampires, he usually will ask my like thoughts and opinions. We're buddies. He is very cool. You should watch his videos. He did a review of my book of The Company of Death on his channel because he is amazing and super sweet. Yeah. Have I read or reviewed Carpe Jugulum, a Terry Pratchett novel? I sure have. I will give you a link to that. I'm just like Googling myself constantly now. Carpe Jugulum by Terry Pratchett is a wonderfully exciting political novel about social issues, as all of his novels are, that I sure got a lot of comments on about people not liking my politics. I'm like, they're not my politics. I mean, they are, but they're Terry Pratchett's politics. And if you don't like that, don't read Terry Pratchett. That I just linked in the chat is my review of Carpe Jugulum. How do I join my Discord? Let me give you a link. There's a link in the description of this video, but I will make it easy for you. I will give you a link right now to join my Discord. My Discord is very chill. There's like 500 people in my Discord, but hardly any ever talk. So it's a very calm Discord. It's not overwhelming. You can just talk about vampires there, talk about books, join the book club. You could join the Discord without joining the book club. It's just like a Discord where you talk about vampires or gothic stuff, or we also talk about Phantom of the Opera, anything tangentially related to my instruments. How do I like Masquerade by Terry Pratchett? Masquerade's funny. It's okay. I don't like what it did with Christine. I don't like it that it made her a total ditz because she's a very strong character. I mean, I liked Agnes fine, but I think making Christine super dumb to make Agnes look better was doing a disservice to the characters. Like, yeah, it's comedy, whatever, but it's cute. I read it like once 15 years ago. Not something that I'd like read again and again. What made me choose a Glock 18 for Emily? Okay, Emily is the main character in my book, The Company of Death, and she's like this commando paramilitary kind of vampire hunter. Like in this world, vampires have sort of taken over after the zombie apocalypse and are just like hoarding humans. And Emily works on the squad that's trying to like stop that. So I originally had Emily, her gun was a micro Uzi because the friend who I named Emily after, she's not really based on her, but my friend Emily, who I named Emily after, had a character in a story she had written when we were teenagers who had micro Uzis. And it was just like the gun she had. So I was like, of course, Emily's going to have a micro Uzi. So I had her have this micro Uzi, but I also had her have a thigh holster which I like the aesthetic of. But when I submitted to my publisher is very gun savvy, and he was like, no, a micro Uzi would not fit in a thigh holster. You got to give her a hip holster or change the gun. So I got a gun consultant who's a military person, and he just talked me through like what gun options there were. And I told him that this gun had to be able to switch from manual to automatic. It needed to be able to fire like an Uzi, but it also could fire just a single bullet. Had to be something good for killing zombies, and also something that might exist 50 to 100 years in the future, in this nebulous future time where I set my zombie apocalypse novel. And we settled on a Glock 18. And that was just like what my gun consultant advised me to, when my publisher told me that a micro Uzi was not cool enough, even though I think they're cool, just aesthetically. It was kind of like a Lara Croft thing that didn't pan out. Thank you for that question. I love questions about my novel. Would a phaser, which is basically light, work on a vampire? Would the vampire shrug it off? It depends on the vampire. Some vampires are vulnerable to light, some are not. Dracula was not vulnerable to light at all. Light, sunlight, daylight being something that vampires cannot tolerate came about with the movie Nosferatu by F.W. Murnau, German Impressionism, because he liked that cinematically on a movie screen. That's not something that was ever part of vampire lore. You know, vampires being monsters, being creatures of the night, being like scary things come out after dark was always a thing, of course, but it wasn't like sunlight is lethal to vampires until that movie made it a thing. So the fact that it's a cinema Hollywood, not Hollywood because it's German, but what eventually became Hollywood after that convention makes me not like that trope as much, even though I used it in my own book, even though my favorite vampire tropes, Anne Rice uses it in the Vampire Chronicles. If you want your vampires not to be vulnerable to a phaser, fine. If you want them to be vulnerable to it, also fine. Your vampires, your rules. The only thing about vampires is that once you set up the rules, you have to stick to the rules. Anything goes. Hope you can read The Coldest Girl in Cold Town soon. I hope I can too. I almost put it up for vote this month. But I wasn't sure what other 2 novels to put with it in our 3-part vote, whereas I had 3 urban fantasy pulpy novels, so it worked for this. I'll probably put it up next month. Maybe it's just like books I really want to read will be my theme. Like, does it have to be themed? Not really. 1 month's theme was that none of them were connected at all. That's just the way it was. But I've been wanting to read Coldest Girl in Cold Town for a long time. I haven't read any of Holly Black's other work. But I also want to read Salem Slut. Like, there's so many vampire books I want to read. Do I like clocks with skulls? Yes, I do. I have clocks with skulls, not in this room. Oh, no. So I have a clock with skulls on it, but my mom came to stay with me and to help me look after the baby for a while. This was several months ago. But she put my clock with skulls in the baby's room, I guess because she wanted a clock in there. And I'm like, you don't put skulls. I mean, you could put skulls in a baby's room. I just didn't imagine that aesthetic. So now the clock with skulls is in the baby's room because my mom put it there. Oh, it's 9:49 already. Wow, time flies. We've been talking longer than usual. If you have any other questions for me that I'm willing to answer, if I haven't answered your question, it's because I don't have an answer for it. Now's your chance. We'll take a few more minutes. Next month's read is Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Bright. You have until February 13th to read it. Our book club always goes 13 to 13 because 13 is my lucky number. The live stream for it will be around that date, not on it. As you can tell, this month's is on a different date because life happens. You've been doing vampire reviews for so long. Do you ever get sick of vampires? No, I don't get sick of vampires. I do get sick of like writing. Writing is hard. I don't get sick of making YouTube videos, but sick of like being relevant. It's also hard. I mean, it's just this year has been terrible. It's been a terrible year. I'm talking about 2020, obviously. 2021 has also been terrible so far, but we're okay. Tomorrow's the inauguration and everything will be better. It better be. Any plans on reviewing Nosferatu, Phantom der Nacht? Maybe. I know Klaus Kinski is, but you know, he's also like, he's been around. Well, thank you, Victoria Stark, for the $5 Canadian. Just got out of rehearsal. Just want to wish you and your family well. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Think you'll play Hades. You know, I know nothing of Hades other than seeing people tweet about it sometimes. I don't play a lot of games. You know, I'm too busy reading and writing. As you know, my hobby is writing fan fiction. That's what I do with my life when I'm not working or reading books, which is work. But I like Hades. I like Greek mythology. I like Hades and Persephone. Is it a romantic game? I mean, I'm intrigued. Do you guys read Lore Olympus on Webtoons? I am obsessed. You should read it. Look it up. Have I done the Vampire Tapestry? No, I have not. Fixed for what fandoms? The Vampire Chronicles? Which I'm not going to share because the drama. Yes, you do read Lore Olympus. Good for you. It is good stuff. I'm so obsessed with that. You play as Zagreus, the son of Hades, looking for his life. What? Did Hades cheat on Persephone? I hate it already. Hades is supposed to be the one husband who's not terrible. Or is he Persephone's son? They're not supposed to have any kids. Have I ever been to the Anne Rice Ball? Yes, I have once. It was not wonderful for me. It was when she revived it after Prince Lestat came out. Not that year, because I had just gotten married and I was on my honeymoon that year, but the year after. And I went alone and I wore heels and I sort of stood in pain in my heels off to the side of the wall and watched everyone around me, and no one there. I'm very antisocial and very introverted, so I couldn't mingle. It was very loud and crowded, and I just like did not have a good time. I'm not a clubbing sort of person, but Anne Rice was there, like up on a balcony where I couldn't even see her, and I was just like, at least I'm here. But another part of that experience was that Anne Rice was doing other events around the ball that I got to like go and see her at and hear her speak and stuff, and that was cool. You know, trauma aside, I'm still a fan. Spoilers. Have I seen Hadestown? Yes, I saw Hadestown on Broadway. Not this past October, but the October before. I went there with Lindsay and we watched it together. And then I told Lindsay, hey, we should go see Beetlejuice while we're here. And she's like, I don't know, sounds dumb. And I was like, no, it's going to be awesome. So I made her go see Beetlejuice and we were both like hooked from there. Beetlejuice equally awesome musical as Hadestown. Not as artsy and deep, but just like a good show. As someone who has a degree in musical theater and like built my life around musical theater, I appreciate a good show. That was October 2019, before the quarantine hit, and then like never again. Oh, thank you, Scarlett Dale, for $5. Happy inauguration, everybody! Yes! Yes, Hades is the best husband out of the three brothers of Olympus. You can date Thanatos! I would love to date Thanatos. You know how I feel about death. Oh, thank you, JRL Studios, for the $4.99. From one queen to another, beauty is pain, but you make it look so easy. I saw OBC of Hadestown. My partner and I were sobbing messes. Yes. Sobbing messes. It's a good show. We had front row seats. Lindsay got us front row seats. This Lindsay. Yeah. I have friends in high places that like can get tickets to things. Life is good. It was a year and a half ago. I am out of wine. So I think the stream is. Thank you all for coming. If you have any last questions for me about The Hunger, about Lost Souls, about Vampire Book Club, or about vampires in general, or about my book, or about my Discord or YouTube channel, here's your chance. I know I've said that like 3 times already. Well, thank you, Ram75. You're so sweet. Stephanie, I see your question, but that is such a big question. I do not know how to answer that right now. Write the book only you can write. That's all I can say. I wrote a very much longer Tumblr post about that question a while back, which is probably still on my Tumblr somewhere, but I wouldn't even know how to look for it now. Am I a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer? When I was a teenager, I went to Torrance High School, which is where Buffy the Vampire Slayer was filmed. I wasn't a high school student. I was in 8th grade, but because I was in advanced math and advanced science, they bus us in the morning over to Torrance High School. And every morning in the bulletin, we would get this announcement that said, Buffy is coming. Buffy is coming to the high school. They were going to start filming at our high school. So I felt like this attachment to Buffy. So when Buffy came out, and I'm like, this show is being filmed at my school, I had to watch it. So I did. It was before I really got like super into vampires, but it was a fun show. I enjoyed it, and it felt like my show because it was like filmed at my school. So I was into it that way, but I probably only watched like 4 or 5 seasons before I got out of it. Like before it even like went into Angel, I probably watched only 1 season of Angel, and then I sort of forgot about it. People asked me about reviewing it. I would have to rewatch the entire thing, which sounds like a lot to do, which is why I haven't done it yet. I'm not a big fan of it, but it has a special place in my heart. Yeah, Sunnydale High School was my school. It was also the same school where they filmed 90210. It's a very popular school for filming because it's pretty, you know. Well, it is 10 o'clock. Thank you all for joining me for the Vampire Book Club. I hope to see you next month. Please join my Discord server. I put a lot of links in the chat. Go watch those videos if you haven't already, because I feel like I said much more intelligent things in those videos than I've said tonight. And if you have any other questions for me that I haven't answered, you can just come to my Discord server and ask them, because I actually like chat with people there, and I can actually keep up instead of in the chat. But thank you so much for coming. I love you all. Have a good night. behave. Don't do anything that I wouldn't do. That is my advice for you.